Good morning, or good afternoon. Whatever it is, good day to you. So we had a bit of technical difficulty, but hey, we know these things happen. I want to first of all to start off by thanking you all for the lovely birthday greetings. I celebrated my birthday on Tuesday, and it was absolutely awesome. Celebrating in the sun, celebrating life, and really just being thankful for all that I have and all the things that I'm doing, including doing webinars all the way from the Caribbean, via America, Africa, London, wherever Zoom will take you, I am there. So today, I'm talking to somebody who I find so interesting that I decided to invite him to come and talk with me. And I'm talking to Dr. Rael Sims, right? About neuroscience, neurobiology, sex. I try to emphasize sex, but I know some people have issues with it, and human behavior, especially in relationships or with regard to relationships. So I want you to stay with me, stick with me, hang there, and let's talk about the science of all things called relationships. So I'm going to welcome my guest. I'm sure it's going to be wrong. Who will introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
So good. I'm punchy today. I'm bouncing off the walls. Good.
Oh, great.
Tell the audience about your name, pronounce properly, and what you do.
Yes, my name is Dr. Ryeal Simms, and I'm a relationship expert, relationship scientist, and I specialize in why we do what we do from an eco-biopsychosocial and spiritual point of view. When it comes to relationships, I talk about what's really going on in the brain and what's really going on in the body. And when in our relationships, I teach body language. I'm a behaviorist. I teach about the behavioral, human behavior, and the anatomy of sex and what goes on in the body when it comes to sex and kissing and hugging and the power of touch. And I just get really deep into the science of why we do what we do.
Good. And especially the kissing and the sex bit. The reason why I say that is because people actually shy away. I have a friend who shies away from that subject, intimacy or sex. The word sex, like they say that it's down in their throat. And it's almost like they're apologizing for the fact that that's what we do. And we just don't do it to have babies, we do it because it's pleasurable. So I wanted to start off with just the first question, which is on my list, speaking to some people and they're saying, why are relationships not working? Why is it that everybody that I go out with seems to last a couple of months, not even a couple of years? What is going on? Why are people not staying in the zone of trying to make things work? Or can they make it work? Long question.
Well, most of the time, we just jump into relationships without actually doing our homework, without actually finding out what is our non-negotiable requirements, our needs, our wants. And I think that that's really important too, to understand what those are before we actually venture into the relationship arena. We should definitely know what we're really looking for. As you know, we should act as employers and understand what we need to hire into our business. I tell women a lot that you are the employer. Us men, we're interested in trying to get the job. So I think it's really important to make sure that you know what you're hiring, right? So in order to know what you're hiring, you have to know who first. You have to know self. And I think it's really important to take out time to get to know self. And what we do is we just jump into a relationship because it's a coping mechanism of not wanting to feel lonely or alone, right? So we jump into the relationship without really knowing more about who we are. Because if you know who you are, then you know the questions that you're going to ask when you're in the interview to see if somebody qualifies to be hired into your life, right?
Yes, definitely. And most of us tend to not, well, definitely tend to not do the interviews well because we're so busy trying to get chatted up, find yourself a guy. Well, I mean, this is relative to both sides, but you're so busy trying to get over the last one that you don't really do your shopping list, as you say, your pictures.
Yeah. So some of our problems too, if we don't get over the last one, what's really happening is if we don't detox from the last relationship that we're in, what actually is happening is that our body is still yearning for someone similar to that person. When you hear people say, why do I keep attracting the same person over and over again, right? And what's really happening is if you don't detox the person out of your system and out of your body, what's really happening is when you get into, when you go to an audience or a party or a crowd of people, what's really going on is something that we call the major histocompatibility complex, or the HLA, the human leukocyte antigens. And what that does is it's actually looking for someone similar to your ex, because you haven't gotten over your ex. You didn't throw away those pictures. You didn't get rid of those clothes. You didn't get rid of those texts that you have on your telephone. You're still thinking about, you're still ruminating about your certain person. You're still going to the same places that you guys used to go to enjoy yourselves. You're still going to the same maybe clubs if you go out, right? You're still going to the same restaurants, the same theaters. So you're going to always trigger your hippocampus, which has the memory of your significant other that's in your brain, because you haven't detoxed him out of your brain, right? You haven't taken out time to really get over that person. So the body is going to yearn or try to search for somebody similar to it. So it's no different than a person that's on drugs, right? So if the person that is a drug addict and their drug dealer actually goes to jail, does the drug dealer stop taking drugs because his drug dealer is in jail? No, he's going to go out and try to find another drug dealer, right? That's selling the same drugs that is his preference, right? So if his drug is cocaine, then he's going to go out and look for a drug dealer that's selling cocaine. And you know what? It's not going to be difficult, because that frequency, right? That energy, he's going to find someone similar to his drug dealer. It's not going to be a problem. And that's what we do in relationships too as well. We're in our relationship and we don't detox from that person. The body still yearns and still looking for somebody similar to that DNA, to that immune system, right? Which we call the major histocompatibility complex. And that's so actually, when we say, why do we keep attracting? We're not actually attracting. We're actually seeking. We're actually going out looking for that person. And so we think we are actually attracting that person to us. But most of the time, it's not us attracting, it's we are really going out looking for that person.
That is very good, because I think that I used to do that. I am, and I always talk about myself because I don't really think that you should just pretend that it hasn't happened to you. And as a journalist, I find that I go into things quite deeply. I think that I always attracted the same type of person, because I have issues or never dealt with the issues of needing somebody to be in control or somebody I can lean on. It's not necessarily that I want them to control me, because I find after a while, I'm like, oh, stop always been attracted to the person who is almost like, I don't like to call it the daddy syndrome, but it is that, because I think I didn't have a long, I left my father when I was younger with my aunt who looked after me abroad, and I think I'm always looking for that person who takes care of me. Is that part of the science of relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. What we have to realize sometimes too, when it's our relationship with our actual parent. And that relationship I mean, this is vice versa, man or woman. And I remember one client years ago, she would actually break up a relationship within 2 years. And the reason why is because she did not want to get hurt. She kept thinking in her mind that her boyfriend was going to leave her within 2 years because her father left her when she was 2 years old. So she didn't realize throughout her relationships with the man is that she would leave them first so she wouldn't get hurt by the thinking that her significant other would leave her in 2 years. And so she created this pattern, and that's what we do. We create a pattern of in our brain, and it's what we call the neurons. And so we create these neuron patterns in our brain. And so once that's created, then it says like a genie, I'm at your command. And so it's going to always do that until you actually get help. And
Well,
sometimes we can help ourselves, but you know, it's really good. It's faster if you actually get help. It's better.
Well, I need to think about that. And that's why I decide to talk about me, because sometimes we don't get people being very open about what are their issues. I don't have any problems with talking about my issues, but I definitely know that was something that I had to work on, because I just find that because of not having a proper relationship with my father, I had a relationship with him, but it definitely was not what I wanted, not the way that I wanted it. And I think I created that in the men that I dated at that time. The other point that I wanted to talk about was, you and I were talking, let me go back to that daddy syndrome again, because I haven't finished with it, daddy, mummy syndrome, I'm mad talking about that. But that is, for me, when a woman or man has a relationship with somebody older than themselves, so that they can get a sense of loving and caring, but they don't want necessarily, they're not sexually attracted to that partner. They're not sexually attracted to them. Why is that?
Well, actually, it's a father-mother syndrome. It's where we want to be with the person, but we want to be loved. You know, we all have a need to belong, as the Maslow's laws, the hierarchy. So it's not uncommon to get the same type of treatment that we would want to get from our moms, and the same kind of treatment we would want to get from our father, sort of like a guy who was raised by his moms, and his moms did everything for him, the works. So when he gets with a significant other, he expects her to do exactly everything moms did for me, right? And that's being nurtured and taken care of, but not necessarily wanting to be intimate with that person, right? But they still want the love. Now, with some people even have that never even experienced this, but have the illusion as to what that feels like, then they want that loving, caring, nurturing thing without the intimacy, so they can have that father-like relationship, right? And then again, too, another one is they get into a relationship with another person, and not that they don't want to be intimate, but they're trying to correct the relationship that they had with their father or with their moms, and they're using this particular person to correct the relationship that they didn't have with their mother and father. And that's not a good thing, because sometimes what's really happening is, if you're angry at your father and you're with your significant other, you're actually taking it out on him. You're taking out the relationship that you have with your father on your significant other. So your significant other is saying, where's all of this coming from? What is this? What's going on? And they don't really realize that anything that you do and she's going off on you, what she's really thinking about is her father. So it's actually like she's there with him. So she's either trying to correct it, right? But the anger is still there, so we're just not conscious of it until we are aware of it. Yeah, it's pretty deep.
Very deep. I see people joining us now. Just in case you just joined us, I'm talking to Dr. Ryeal Sims about neuroscience, neurobiology, does all those things. And we're going to talk about sex, human, and we are talking about human behavior of relationships. So if you have questions, put it in the comment section, and I'll speak to him about it, because I think this is an opportunity for us to ask questions, not from a silly basis, but from a scientific point of view. And just definitely, I can tell you, Dr. Ryeal knows his stuff. So tell us a bit more. I know you talk in depth. You can go on today, but talking about the sexual aspect. I smile every time I say that word, because I have a friend that will go, no, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. But I think that we should all be able to express ourselves verbally and physically with regard to sex. And many people become indifferent when it comes to that. And I don't understand why, but I know that you can tell us what's wrong with their behavior.
What's wrong with the sex behavior? Which question? Which question is it?
I want to ask you, why is it that people have issues with sex?
Well, one main issue with it is just communication. I mean, that's something that's really not that complicated as far as some of the issues, but one of the issues is just communication. It's actually communicating with one really what their preference is. And when we get into relationships too, we think that you should know how to please me, right? And no one is born to know how to please another person, right? So that's but we're taught not to talk about this. We're taught to not to have a conversation about this. We're taught to just get into a relationship and that person should know how to please me. Well, first of all, we got to know what it is that please ourselves, so we're able to tell our significant other what pleases us, right? Because people get into a relationship and think that because they can please their ex, that you're going to like the same thing, right? And that's not true, so that's why communication is so critical when it comes to intimacy, to understand. And again, it goes right back to what I said earlier on, is that it's so important to know about self. And that's why it's important for us to take out time to really know about self and what it is that we like, so we can articulate that to our significant other. Yeah.
Well, most people, from what I've gathered and from the research I've gathered, tend to allow men to take the dominant role, and the ladies just lay back and think of the shopping list. What am I going to do later? What am I going to do tomorrow? I was listening to one of the things that you were talking about, and isn't it about participation? I know you talked about pleasing, pleasure, but how does the woman who hasn't been taught of person taught how to express themselves. And I find in the Caribbean that the women don't express themselves as much as we do in America or in London. So how can they get around learning how to do that, to express themselves effectively?
Yeah, some people are shy. Some people are really shy about expressing themselves in relationships. And I think it's really important um, to 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 learn. I mean, it's our problems when we don't really teach our adolescents. We don't teach our kids, so we grow up. And mainly too, we're in relationships with our mom and dad, and sex is not talked about, right? This is like a no-no. This is something that you don't do. So we don't teach them how to be more aware of how to articulate their relationships. So I think when it's really difficult and you can't really express yourself about how you want to feel or how you want to make yourself, how you want your significant other um, to make you feel, or I think it's good to. We have a lot of sex therapists out here, and I think it's really good to contact a sex therapist or someone like myself, a psychologist or a therapist, period, to help you to help how to communicate to your significant other, because some of us just can't express, just can't disclose, or just don't even know how to do that because they probably wasn't raised with a parent, right? And they didn't have that upbringing with the parent. So it's really difficult to even know. Because again, most of us think that you should know, right? And that's one of the major mistakes, is that you should know how to please me. And no one is raised, no one is born to know how to please everybody in the world, right? So everybody you come in contact with. Yeah.
So basically, what what I think needs to happen is that in the relationships at home especially, we don't, our children do not see us being affectionate to our other partners. I'm not talking about sex in that case. I'm talking about touching, feeling, maybe kissing. Those are not things that they're learning from us, so therefore they can't learn themselves then to be the same as they grew up with another person.
Yeah, we don't have a role model. So if you don't have a role model to see that, then you don't know what it really looks like. So what you do is you just assume and you just jump into the relationship arena and think that you know what it's about. So you're right. If you don't have that role model, if you don't actually see people being affectionate and touching, and if you're not also affectionate with your child, they don't know what that feels like, you know. Yeah.
So, and I always say that more so about boys because we do it naturally with girls. We naturally help them. We're helping them when they're younger to plait their hair. We're helping them, to pick the dresses and fussing over them. But with boys, it's almost like we're telling them to toughen up. We don't give them the same, that same feeling. That is something I think that as my kids are getting older, I have to learn. I have to learn that it's really important to give boys as much as girls affection so they know how to give it to others. Um, that I do know. And I think some people on there will agree with me that they don't do it either. Come on, I want you to talk to me. I want you to tell me what you're thinking. Are we on the right track? Because it's not just about me, it's about you guys. I'm doing it for you. I, in between I'm talking, I wanted to read some of the comments that we got in here. Jeanette said, oh Lord, well, we have this certain thing. Eliza Victor and other journalists we are the employer. Okay. Olivia Debbie Warren says, I am here for this. And Andrea Maynard Brady, not at all. It depends on the individual. That's why it's good to move out of the same circle so that you don't have to see the same rubbish all the time. I don't agree with that on there. Apparently my mic is low and a bit muffled, but I think it has something to do with the weather. The weather is raining quite hard here in the Caribbean, and I don't apologize for the rain, but I apologize for the sound. I don't even know what to do with that. I'll get it sorted for you. If it's something is blocking the mic, I don't know what is blocking the mic. Tell me if you can still hear me and if all is well. And the men are brave because actually sometimes you're with someone, you love them, but don't love their ways. I felt I was his mother, not his wife. Yeah. So we have to part. And Jeanette says, yes, that's absolutely right. Sometimes they have to pay for, people have to pay for their father's mistakes. And the men are very good. Communication is a big thing. It's hard when your partner finds it hard to talk. Get to know about self and the other person before you get involved in a relationship. Always choose time over intimacy. Choose that time to get to know someone before you get involved in an intimate way. So basically, exactly what you're saying. They are saying that they know it's about time. You need to give yourself time. And don't feel pressurized that you're getting too old and your ovaries are seizing up or they become in little currents instead of pools, and then you need to hurry up and get children. That's what happens in it. They put this time frame on themselves, and that's why they hurry up and get another man, and then really it's not the right person. Dr. Sims, I want you to talk to us about other things that you are specialist on. I know you do so much. Give me some ideas of what you would like to talk about.
Well, I guess on the good side, when we are talking about relationships, and if you are in a good relationship, what is one of the good things that's so important for a relationship? So when we talk about touch, when we talk about kissing, why it's important, especially for kissing, right? Would you like to talk about that? I think we had mentioned that before.
And I was saying that I don't want to pause, but we were talking about it before, but yeah, it'd be nice to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we understand as men too, and this message is definitely toward men as well, and why it's important. So most women, when they ask, when they stress that they want to kiss in the relationship, it's not just because they're thinking about the fairy tale of kissing when they see on television, in the movies or something, right? But it's really a biological reason. And when a man and a woman kiss, and this is very important of why they should, the woman actually receive testosterone from the male saliva. That testosterone goes into the brain, and the testosterone is responsible for the arousal in a woman. And this is why it's important for a man to have the patience to let this process happen. And the process is, once the woman receives the testosterone, it goes into the ventral tegmental area, the caudate nucleus, the nucleus accumbens area of the brain, which is the pleasure center of the brain. And this part of the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, it's responsible for the woman to become lubricated and aroused. And this is the key to her being aroused and lubricated. Because, us men, we're ready for sex instantly. It doesn't take us that long. But for a woman, it's a process, and it's a process for a reason. So that testosterone kicks in something that we call, the nickname we call tinting, but it's vasopressin. And the tinting process, the vasopressin process, is so the woman becomes lubricated. So the cervix also push the uterus back. The cervix pushes the uterus back. So just in case 5 or 10 inches goes into the vaginal canal, and it doesn't damage the vaginal canal. So it's so important for this whole process to happen. But we don't really realize that because nobody teaches us that. So we wonder why some of the women actually go to the hospital for problems down there, for vaginal problems, is because we didn't take out time and let the whole process that's designed for the woman to get ready, is what we would call it, to say, hey, now it's time. But we don't do that. We don't take out that time. So which we all use the term foreplay. So that's part of the foreplay system. But I have a lot of men that have complaints about, well, she's never ready. She seems like she doesn't want to do it because she's not lubricated, right? But it's not that she's not ready. It's that he doesn't take out the time to wait and to foreplay and to kiss her, to give her what she really needs. Because what the woman's body really needs is the testosterone from the male saliva. So that's part of the key that's going to get her aroused, is the testosterone that's coming from the saliva. And then everything else that pleases her too as well. So that's, again, it's important for the male to understand, how can I please you and what pleases you? So with that, and plus that, then she is definitely ready now, and you don't destroy the vaginal canal, because once the vaginal canal, the blood swells so it can grip what goes in, right? So that's a process, versus just going right in when it's not ready, and you can damage it. And that's why some women don't realize when they're actually having to go to the hospital, especially if the person is well endowed. If the person is bigger than normal, then he really should take time and wait until she's ready. And so that whole process is the kissing. So that's the purpose, just by the laws of nature, as to why we really kiss. Not because we kiss because we see it in the movies and all of that, but it's really a scientific purpose.
See, the scientific purpose is what frightens people, because I actually think lots of people don't like kissing. I actually think they don't. They find every excuse. Oh, I'm not sure if I like his lips. I'm not sure if I like the taste of kissing. Whatever the issues are, they go.
Can I talk about on that real fast? And two, not everybody is going to like somebody else's kiss, because actually a kiss could make or break a relationship. And why is because our DNA can reject the person, because when I mentioned earlier, the major histocompatibility complex and the HLA, what that is it does a body scan, but it also does a chemistry scan. What it's doing is it's testing your chemical, it's testing your DNA. So the body is saying, once that DNA goes into my system, then it tells me if this is an opposite match. And if it's not an opposite match, because it has to be an opposite match. The DNA does not like a DNA that's the same DNA or a similar DNA to you. The DNA likes an opposite DNA. It likes the opposite match. So what it's going to tell you is that this is not the person for us to procreate, to bear a child. And because the DNA tells us that this will be a perfect match with a person to have a child with. That's why we reject the person, no matter how beautiful the symmetry of the person, how beautiful the person's face, or how great the golden ratio, the person's body. No matter how beautiful that person is, we find ourselves still rejecting that person. Like your girlfriend to be like, girl, what's wrong with you? He's handsome. Oh my God. And it's like, it's just something about him I just don't like. It's the body actually telling you that it's rejecting his DNA. It's rejecting his immune system, and it's not comfortable with it. And that's what we feel when we feel like, why don't I like this person? but it's actually your body telling you, and I like to say the spirit too, it's actually, because that's how God created us, is actually the spirits. Now, sometimes we ignore that and we try to make a relationship work, although you don't have what I spoke about last weekend in the show. It's about chemistry, and you don't have the chemistry. So some people get into the relationship without the chemistry, but they get into the relationship because they're compatible, right? So compatible, you mean, hey, I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer. I'm a doctor, you're a doctor. We like bowling, you like bowling, right? We like the same kind of cars. We like going to see racing cars. We like the same kind of movies, right? That's compatible, right? But you don't have the chemistry, right? So some people get into the relationship. Can that happen? Yeah, sometimes it can happen when you are with someone and you're constantly seeing someone. Yeah, that can happen. But there's also a point where you got to realize when it's not happening, don't force it and move on, because it's not happening. The body is actually telling us this is not going to happen, right? So we get into the relationship and then we realize the relationship is not working because you never really had the chemistry. And that's why it's important to have the chemistry, compatibility, and to also have the social compatibility. So you can both be compatible, socially compatible, and have the chemistry compatibility. And that's the major histocompatibility complex.
My friend says it's so right that she dated a man who basically always smelled like Weetabix. Weetabix smell, and she
Yeah,
said that smell was so off-putting. And it wasn't that the man didn't bathe and he didn't spray deodorant, but his perspiration or whatever was in his, but he didn't smell like something she wanted to smell. So the relationship didn't work because she just found it so hard.
yeah, I like to speak on that. Yeah, you're so right. And that is definitely something that we do as human beings. Well, actually, every living, breathing creature on this earth, that's something that we do. So every female living, breathing creature on the earth does the exact same thing. The first thing we do when two human beings come together is what? What's the first thing that two people do when we come together?
Yeah.
No. Well, eventually, yes, eventually. But the first thing we do is smell. We smell. And we don't really realize that. So when you see two canines, two dogs come together, what's the first thing they do? Is smell each other, right? The first thing animals do is smell. We do the exact same thing because our pheromone, our smell from our sweat glands and everything too, is something that goes into your olfactory, into your nose, and it smells. So the purpose of the smell is also to smell the DNA, to see if the person is what we call it, if the person is healthy, if the person is have any viruses. It's in, and we can sense that. Sometimes, again, we ignore what our body is really telling us, right? When a woman is ovulating, when she ovulates, she lets out a pheromone called compulence. Us men, we smell when you ovulate. We smell that. So once the male smells when you're ovulating, we also release a chemical that's called androstenone. This is how people actually have sex on the first night at a club, right? Because we're actually smelling our pheromones. And what the young lady had mentioned is good because what she smelled turned her off. And that's usually what happens. It either turns you on or it either turns you off because the DNA rejects a DNA that your body would not like. So if it's not an opposite match, because again, remember, it's the opposite that is a match, um, so when the woman is releasing the pheromone, when she's ovulating, that's what makes the male all over you. Like sometimes if you realize that you went to anything, a banquet, an event and you're ovulating and men are all over you because they're actually smelling the fact that you are ovulating. What do we call that when we see two dogs? When the woman, the female dog, is in what? He's in heat, right? So when woman is ovulating, we call estra, but she's also doing the exact same thing. You can also smell her in heat. We're not conscious of it though. You can be conscious of it when you realize your significant other, for instance, like your significant other, when she's ovulating, you realize that you're all over your wife and your wife would be, and then until you realize, oh, wait a minute, are you ovulating? It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, no wonder I'm always touching you today. And I'm all hugging you and all over you and everything. Also, the DNA is on the sheets and the cover. So sometimes if you ever notice, those of you who are listening that have a significant other, if you notice that you are actually on the other side of the bed, like when your significant other gets out of the bed and you wake up and you're on his side of the bed, or he's on your side of the bed, it's because the DNA in the immune system is on the pillow and on the sheets. So you gravitate toward that so you can be next to that person.
Wow, that is so interesting. The next one says, so if there's no kissing, then the sex would not be good?
If there's no kissing, it's, I can't say 100% that it's not good. If you find another way that could help arousal and that can help you to share chemicals with each other, because one thing that is good is just the anticipation of being intimate with a significant other, meaning when we are together and we're not kissing, we are still releasing a bonding chemical called oxytocin. So oxytocin is being released at this time, which is also a trust drug, but it's also a drug, a bonding drug that bonds mother and child. So when the oxytocin is being released, it's just not for intimacy, but it's also when the mother has a child in the hospital, she's releasing oxytocin. And that's the first thing that a mother wants to do, is to hold the child. And that's the oxytocin that's being released. And that's what bonds mother and child together, right? So when you're intimate with a significant other, you're releasing the oxytocin. And oxytocin also bonds you to a person. But oxytocin can be dangerous too as well, because if you don't know anything about this person, oxytocin is so strong, it makes you think you really like this person and you know nothing about that person. So you have to be very careful, because the oxytocin is a bonding chemical. So it makes you think about that person. It makes you want that person. It makes you yearn for that person. It makes you desire for that person, because that person brought the oxytocin out in your body. And it's a pleasure center part of chemical, a neurotransmitter. So it makes you want that person, but you're not really wanting that person because you like that person socially. You just like, the body wants that person because it knows it brought that oxytocin out in you.
I don't get that. I don't get it. But all these things you have to think about, well, it's good to know it now that you've told me. I understand my behavior patterns. And as you say, women are on heat as well. So ladies, you need to be careful that you're not giving off that smell, that signal that you're hungry and you need sex. Welcome, Kelvin Troy Johnson. Kelvin relationship service that was on here before. So I just like to say hello to him. It's nice to see people actually come back. So, Dr. Sims, tell me something else that I don't know. I really don't understand this science of relationships. I just thought, I looked at his face, I like his teeth, because I've got a thing about teeth. If his teeth is wrong, then I don't think that we're going to go very far. If I can get you to fix your teeth, then that'll be all right. I've really got a thing about teeth. So tell me something.
Well, that's actually us being, sometimes what we do is we look at the symmetric symmetry, we look at the face, but we look when we're looking, we're actually looking at the ratio. We're looking at the balance of the face, and we're looking at the ratio of the golden ratio. We're seeing if it's equal and if it's something off. Like sometimes we might have a lazy eye, and maybe something may be different on one side versus the other side. And that's another thing that the body is doing. We do a body scan and we try to see if those reasons that the body is off differently, then we make a decision whether we're still attracted to it or not, or if we're afraid of it or not, or if it's a antigen, if it's a pathogen, I'm sorry, or disease or infection, as to the reason why the symmetric symmetry is off. So sometimes we look and we go, well, we don't like this part, or we don't like that. And sometimes we're not even aware of it as to how we could tell the difference between somebody's, eyebrow, right? That's why it's good to make sure when you get your eyebrows done that it looks pretty much the same, because if one is off versus the other one, that can actually turn the person off, because what the brain is saying is something's wrong, something's not right here, right? Something is unequal. And we look and then we don't spend time in trying to find out. We just reject it. Our bodies just reject it and we move on. Yeah.
So I want to know, and a lot of people on here will want to know the views that we have now, and obviously, reason that we are sharing to many groups. How can they attract the person without the micro scanning and what is the thing that they must look out for? Because there are many people out there that single, perhaps they're getting a little bit too technical in relationships, don't you think?
Well, how we attract is the way we attract is something that we have no control of when it comes to our immune system, our DNA. And I think it's us making sure that we are healthy, making sure that we eat right, making sure. Now, socially, how do we attract? Well, we find out what's our best, what's our best brand, our marketing brand, right? What is it that we think when we look in the mirror? And I tell my clients this: look in the mirror and figure out, what do you think is your best access, your best parts that you think is totally awesome, that you think people comment to you too as well, right? What is it that when men walk by you and say, oh, wow, I like your blank, 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 then that's what you're going to spend time in making sure that it's going to be out there, right? Because you have to understand what we don't understand too. What's really important is that we try to figure out, well, we think, we don't want to think that we're advertising our body. We don't want to think that, but we're advertising our body. We're advertising our hair. We're advertising the glasses that we wear. We're advertising how we get our eyebrows done. We're advertising the kind of perfume, the kind of lipstick we put on our lips, the kind of clothes. And what kind of clothes are you wearing? What kind of clothes are you wearing that's going to promote your brand? And I think that's so important. See, sometimes what we do is we wear clothes that everybody else has on, but we're not comfortable with them, but we still wear them because everybody else have them, because you might be kind of shy to show your cleavage, but everybody else is wearing the same kind of dress to show your cleavage, but you're wearing it. But yet still, when you go out, you're not comfortable with it. And when you're not comfortable with what you have on, that's a frequency. You're going to release that vibe, that frequency, and men are going to pick it up. They're going to pick up that you're not comfortable with you're in, which means you don't have good self-confidence in your choices of advertising your brand. So it's so important to know, what are my colors? What do I like? What are my colors? What colors do I like to put on that makes me feel good? And I also feel comfortable in, right? What ways do I like to put my hair that makes me feel good and that people compliment me with my hair, right? So we got to think of these things of how we're going to attract a person to us, because remember, biology, you have no control of, right? That's going to be something that's going to be an added attraction to the clothes that you have on, the kind of glasses that you're wearing, the kind of hairstyle that you have on, the kind of shoes that you have on, the perfume that you have on, the lipstick that you have on. And trust me, we all think about this. I mean, everything that I'm talking about is something that major corporations know that we think about. And that's how they're so rich, because they know that we are all marketing brand. We all spend our time to market ourselves, and we need our brand, right? Men, same thing with men, what kind of suits they wear, what kind of hats, what kind of tie they buy, what kind of clothes, what kind of cars they buy, right? Because we're not buying our cars to impress other men. We might buy cars because we like it, right? Especially younger guys, but we're buying these cars so we can impress the women, right? So women can go, oh my God, check that out, right? You know, that's our way of attracting too, you know. And the clothes that we wear, the ties that we have on, the suits that we have on, the hats that we have on that match the suits and stuff, like, right? Because we're marketing our brand. This is something that we have to understand. God himself is an entrepreneur, and he's in business to generate souls, to generate babies. When we're in business as entrepreneurs, our purpose is to generate wealth, right? So he's always in his business. We are his employees, right? So what we're doing is actually marketing his brand. We're marketing his brand because we have to constantly be attracted to each other, right? And bond with each other so we can procreate with each other, right? Because you got to think about this. You know, when you think about McDonald's and you say, wow, why does that commercial keep coming on television? We get it. Everybody knows McDonald's. Everybody knows what they sell on at their restaurant, right? But the thing is what corporation knows and what God knows is that 150 something thousand people die every day.
Yes.
300 and something people are born every day. God gets a profit of 200 and something thousand every day of babies and souls. Was no different than a major corporation marketing. They know that everybody who used to comes to McDonald's will be dead soon, right? And then there's newborn. So we have to keep advertising to the newborn, to the new adolescents, right? To the new teenagers, right? We got to keep marketing to those people. So the same thing with us human beings. God keeps us marketing. This is what I tell people is that every time we see a woman walk by us, we're seeing one of God's commercials.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I like that one. I like that one. Jeanette Stewart says this is a whole lot to process. It's very, very deep expressions. And actually, ladies, write something in there so that I can understand, if you understand what
and I want to say this, I don't want it to be complicated. What I'm trying to share is really what's going on that we don't know behind the scenes, right? that we don't really understand what's happening behind the scenes. Because and you got to think about this. Everything that I'm talking about, when we talk about the science, the neuroscience of relationship, is everything about science is merely the discovery of what God created. All I'm telling you is what God is created. This is really not some mad scientist. Although I'm a scientist, I'm just telling you what we discover about how God made us, right? Which is interesting. So the better we have an understanding of what's going on in our brain and what's going on in our body. For instance, when I just talked about when you ovulate, you release a chemical called copulins. So now you know when you're ovulating, if you don't want men all over you when you go out to a club, right? Then don't go when you're ovulating. Because when you go to a club, when you ovulate, you're going to find men all over you because they smell that you're in heat, right?
Yeah.
And another thing, the danger of that is that when they do smell they're in heat, is maybe you might meet a guy that you like, and he smells that you're in heat, he releases a chemical called androstenone. She smells that androstenone. And next thing you know, both of y'all want to go home. That's all y'all thinking about now, because we're talking about chemistry, right? So these things are so important, and not only just important for us, but important to explain to our adolescents, to explain to our teenagers as to why you need to be careful. Because teenagers say, hey, I'm going to go over his house. We say this too, even as an adult. I'm going to go over this house, girl, and I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just going to fool around a little bit. Well, guess what? When you start kissing, you start receiving that testosterone. You're going to end up going all the way.
As the English would say, Bob's your uncle.
That's right.
That's true.
So you understand, ladies, while I'm giving you this science, I'm giving you this, and I know it's a lot, and I know it's so scientific, but it's important to get the understanding as to know now, to say, oh, now I understand why.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get it. I love it. I love that scientific explanation. I'll be following you around. I'll be stalking you to read what you say. Dawn Alexis Braithwaite says his shoes, his watch, his cologne. Indeed, these are all things that are important, because when he is wearing the wrong cologne, it's like that's another hello. No, I can't take your cologne. I'm feeling nauseous. If his shoes is not clean or it's the wrong shape, then we might not be attracted to him either. And of course, if he's wearing a cheap watch, guys, never wear a cheap watch. I prefer you not to wear one at all. Those are the 3 or 4 things, apart from the smell and the breath. Smell of breath is really important. Those are the outward things: your shoes, your watch, and your cologne. Those are 3 things that are really important. Linda Danzy Black says, love that you identify and appreciation of God before science. Love it. Love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have the argument with a lot of other scientists. We have this debate all the time, and they just don't want to give the respect to God, because this is not this is all God. I mean, it's just it's God. And we think about the mad scientists who, oh, look what I discovered. No, I mean, look what I created. And you're like, no, you didn't create it, you just discovered it. And I know nothing compared to what there is to know about the body and the brain, because God made it so complicated, right? And so we're learning every day something new and something better every day. The thing for my job, because I also teach neuroscience, and the thing with my job is that I have to upgrade. Like right now, we have a syllabus for teaching neuroscience, and we have to change the syllabus now because it's outdated. Because neuroscience is constantly moving every day. We're constantly finding and discovering new things about what the body does and what the brain does.
Well, I have some more questions for you. We're coming up to that hour. Um, my friend is so crazy. We're going to say anyway, what's your star sign, Dr. Sims?
I'm Leo.
Leo, good. Sorry. I'm not going to say any more than that. Just, oh, God. Okay.
Well, one lady told me, she read my palm and she said, the kind of Leo that I am is a good Leo. She said there's two different
Okay.
ones. So
Okay,
she
well,
said
that's
I
all
was
right
the good
then.
one.
That's all
Yeah.
right. That's why I said, oh, God, oh, God. Jan Hogan says teeth, because obviously some people, I don't know if she's saying teeth in taking the mick out of me because I have issues with teeth. And anyway, she said that. Kelvin says, Kelvin Troy Johnson's, I think what you're saying here has validity, but I believe personality can overcome biology. If a man is shy and uncomfortable with himself and what he sees across the uncomfortable with himself and what he sees across the room, he won't even get close enough to her for the biology of the scent to kick in.
Personality is good, but you got to come close to the person. You got to eventually come close to the person. So you can't detect personality unless you come close to the person. So from afar, what that is lust and attraction, right? So you're lusting of what you like, you see from a distance, right? So when you see somebody from a distance, you like it, but you don't, it's sort of just like how people right now, they're meeting people, each other over the internet, right? They're meeting each other over social media, right? And you like each other. You totally like each other, right? You have so much in common. You have a wonderful personality. But when you get together, when you finally get with that person, you don't know what that person, how you're going to take that person's breath. You don't know if you might like that person's breath or like the touch of how the person touched you, how the person smells to you. You don't know that until you actually get with the person. So I'm not saying no to the gentleman with personality. Absolutely, personality is important. They're both equally important because you can have great personality, but if you don't have chemistry, that means you're not having sex at home. That means he's not holding your hand. That means he's not kissing you. That means he's not cuddling with you because a human being does not want to cuddle with somebody that there's no chemistry with. Imagine how that feels then. Imagine being with somebody that has good personality. Hey, you're just really good friends then. You have great personality and you can stay together. You can stay
But
together.
you're just friends.
But you'll be just friends. You can live together. Y'all be happy. You can be happy together with great personalities. That's fine. But when you want something else more, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it because a human being is not going to force themselves to do something that their bodies do not want to do. You're not gonna, and men, you know that. We know that because we're so visual, we know good and well the kind of woman that we want and the kind of woman that we will not sleep with. We don't go after them, right? So, and she can have a great personality. That's fine. You know, that's totally fine. But if you don't have both, if you don't have that chemistry, you're friends. You're just friends. You
That's
got
why
great.
they stay friends as well.
You might as well, absolutely. You might as well stay friends. Yeah.
Angela Barrow said, this is so interesting and fascinating. When does Dr. Sims think it's the best time for people to learn the things? When does Dr. Sims think it's the best time for people to learn the things he's speaking about? If I'd known about all this, I wouldn't have been in certain relationships.
Yeah.
So
Great point. Great point. I used to tour with, I don't know if you guys know this guy, Tavis Smiley, Professor Cornel West, and Michael Eric Dyson. I was a part of the Tavis Smiley Youth Institute. And what we did, we traveled all over the United States and we talked to the youth before they actually venture into the relationship arena. If you go to my business page, Dr. Ryeal Simms, AKA relationship scientist, if you go to that page, you'll see pictures of me with young kids. You'll see pictures of me in college. You know, I remember teaching this 1 year to kids that was just going to high school. I went to a college to speak, and those high school students are now in college. When they came up to me, they said, oh my God, I talk about you all the time. I tell people about you all the time. And so it's good to educate the brain when it's fresh, because the brain doesn't become developed until age 24, 25, right? So it's good to put that in the brain as soon as possible to teach them about, you know, relationships and about, you know, the sex and everything. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I had sex education in school. I don't know if they still teach sex education. So it's not too early to teach, you know, a kid. So I say as early as you can to educate them, and don't look at it as, oh, they should not learn about this. That's the problem. That's the problem, is because we're not teaching them about relationships. You know, I think that's one of the major things that should be a prerequisite in order to graduate, is that you, especially before you get out of high school at least. So if you don't go to college, you know, you still should know about relationships, and not just all about the chemicals that I'm talking about, but just the basic concept of relationships, you know, how that is formed and how to maintain a vitalized, harmonious, cohesive working relationship. I think it's so important. And that's one of the major problems, is that we don't teach our youth. We're not teaching them that. We're teaching them everything else. And then we expect for them to go into a marriage that they know about relationships, and they don't. Just because they have parents, the parents may not know about relationships. And that's why it's important to listen to other experts as well as myself about this, and then educate your significant other. Educate your daughters about oxytocin. Educate your daughters about kissing. Let them know about kissing. This is important. So when you have your daughters, you tell them, hey, I know you're going to be with this boy, and I know you're going to fool around. You're going to say to yourself, I'm not going to go all the way, Mom. Yeah, but let me explain something to you about kissing, right? So you break that down to not just the girl, but break that down to the boy too. Because when he knows, they're going to know the danger that they're putting themselves into. Because think about this. When you're young, and I talk about these drugs, when I talk about oxytocin, when I talk about phenylethylamine, serotonin, vasopressin, when we talk about these certain drugs, these are strong drugs. These are natural chemicals in us. This is what makes us have sex, right? But this is for the couple. But when you're young, your willpower isn't as strong as us adults. So when your little girl goes fooling around with the boyfriend, fooling around with those chemicals, and then next thing you know, she's pregnant, because you didn't want to educate her about how strong these chemicals are when you go fooling around. Because this is what happens. When you fool around with those drugs, they're so strong that even us as adults, we end up doing things that we wish we never did.
I'm laughing at you because I know I can see a lot of people going, yeah, because many of us do that. We're coming to the close, but I wanted to Maureen Elizabeth Worrell says, would that include educating about relationship with self as well as others? I think we covered this in the beginning. Yeah,
absolutely. We covered that at the beginning. That's something that you can educate your significant, your child, or even your nephew, your niece. If you got this knowledge, you educate them to learn about loving self and what is loving self, right? Educate them about understanding self, so they could know that when you are looking for somebody to come into your life, you know what you're looking for. You know the questions that you're going to ask, right? And again, think you're the employer, especially tell the young ladies, you're the employer. Us men, we're interested in trying to get the job, right? So it's important that the bottom line is women, all you women who are married, you women who are in a relationship, are you in the relationship because the man was interested in you? Is that how you got into the relationship? No, let me tell you why you end up married, how you end up married, and how you end up in that relationship. You end up in that relationship because you, woman, said yes. Because you said yes, because the power is in your hands.
Whoa, what a great way to really conclude what I wanted to hear. You said everything that I wanted to hear today. Is there anything that you want to say to close today?
Hey,
Doctor?
that's out of all of the things that I just talked about, it's all about preparing.
Yeah.
So it's all about preparing yourself is to prevent repairing yourself.
Mm. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I could sit here for days and listen to you because I have a scientific mind. Well, sort of, but I like to go quite deep into things. I read things and I want to get a little bit more, which could be quite boring for some people.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you taking the time out today. We've been on here for about an hour and 15 minutes or something, but it's been so wonderful to listen to you. If anybody has any questions, you can still put it in the comment section. I know some of you will be listening after today. It'll be on replay. And so if you've got any questions, put it in there and then I'll alert Dr. Sims to have a look and maybe he can answer you. Would you mind answering them if they put
Oh
questions?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And follow him. Can you tell them how they can follow you?
Oh yeah, you can go to Dr. Ryeal Sims, Ryeal Sims, SIMMS.com. You can also on Facebook. You can actually go to Facebook, Ryeal Sims, just Ryeal Sims, and my business page will be Dr. Rael Sims, aka Relationship Sciences. I do have other pages that says Dr. Rael Sims. I'm not using those just yet. Some people do go on that one, but because I had started off with the Ryeal Sims page, so that's the one. You could actually just look up Ryeal, Ryeal Sims, SIMMS, and if I guess my name is up there too, what people could see.
Yeah, there we can see it. And
yeah.
I'm sure if they just put in Ryeal Sims, it will come up, whether it's doctor, whatever. Just I love saying this. Just Google my name.
Just Google my name, right? Exactly. Yeah, you remember a long time ago when that came, when Google came out and people was offended, but it's the truth. It's like just Google my name, you know.
And I even get to the point of saying Google my name, and I look to see if it comes up first with the Sherry, right?
Yeah.
And I'm top of the list when it comes to Sherry. So I'm
really wow, that's totally awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so because it's important if you're in this business to Google yourself and find out people are writing good or bad things about you. But I'm sure today you're getting a lot of compliments. Mon Taylor says, brilliant presentation. Thanks, Sherry. Angela Barrows, fantastic show. Thank you. Great presentation, Sherry and Dixon. Dr. Sims, says Junette. Mon Taylor says, thank you, Dr. Sims. And Beverly Braithwaite Chan says, thank you so much. Sometimes we don't know who's listening, but they're all people who they're in the business of motivation as well. And they have to be motivated by somebody, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Today I've been motivated by you. And I know it's early your time because he's all the way in California.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally appreciate it. And also, if they want to do a testimony or write a testimony to my page, just write just how they enjoyed the show, because I really like that. And I like to post people's testimony. And to you as well. If you want to do a video, a testimony video, you can send me one too as well, Sherry.
Yeah, I'll do one. I'll be on there chatting away from the Caribbean. And for those of you, this is what I talk about. Dawn Alexis Braithwaite says, wow, thank you, Dr. Sims. Thank you, Sherry Ann Dixon. Linda Danzy Black says, thank you so much for this excellent presentation, Dr. Rael.
Thank you so much.
Dawn. Darren Dixon says, who's my son? He says, great talk. And he's listening all the way from London. Angela says, where are the men? Men don't listen to anything that you put up unless you're talking nastiness.
Right.
But you know, they probably might listen and be horrified. In London, my usual audience is watching the carnival online
Yeah.
today. It's a bank holiday weekend, but they will listen. They always tend to. They go on afterwards, and between today and tomorrow, you check the figures, you'll see it will go up. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you for doing the work that you do. Keep on building from strength to strength. And will you come back? Will you come back and talk to us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. I am so honored too as well to be interviewed by, you know, such a person as yourself. I'm like, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have a good day. Go have some breakfast.
Yes,
A big breakfast.
absolutely.
You're allowed.
Yes.
I wish I could send you some Caribbean fruits and things, but maybe one day. We're planning to have Awesome You in Barbados.
Yeah.
In Barbados next year. I do this thing called Be Awesome, Be
Yeah.
Awesome, Awesome You. And it's doing, you know, we take the whole show on the road. And next year it's going to Barbados. So
Oh, that would be totally cool.
that
I
would
would
be
love to do that.
awesome to have you on there.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll televise it live. So thank you, Dr. Sims. And
You're
to
so welcome.
listening, especially the ones that come on every week, thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be talking to a chiropractor, if that's the way to say it. But she talks about all things back and how the skeleton, how the back are really look after everything that's internal. What you see external is what's going on internal. So we're back there again. Thank you so much. You have a good day, Dr. Sims.
Okay. Thank you. That's going to be a good one too. I'm going to tune in as well.
Okay, I'll send you the link. All right. You'll have
All right.
to get up
Okay.
early again, right?
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.